My name is Joanne Dennison, and I am the owner of the Ordinary Success Project. It came out of the concept of, first of all, that every person, every man, every woman can make a difference. And that one day I was actually watching the Olympics, and I got to thinking about the whole concept of, if everyone achieved their potential, would success be ordinary? And out of that, it kind of rolled into the whole idea of ordinary success, which is granted an oxymoron, but in my mind, not necessarily. That's how it came to be. Been a member since 2001. Always been instructed by my mentors to be part of your professional association, so that's how you grow and don't stagnate. And so when I transitioned from my last career into this career, I researched and found out National Speakers Association was the professional association for experts who speak, and earned my membership within a year of learning of the organization. I'm proud to say I'm a certified meeting professional, something I held very dear to me. I've been one for 16 years, and I do go out and work with a lot of meeting planners, and we use the buzzwords of strategic planning and ROI a lot and everything. And one day what I got to thinking about was the fact that we sometimes forget to sit in the attendee's chair. And we all do this in whatever career we have. We sit in our offices, our ivory towers or whatever, and we make these decisions, but sometimes we only look at the view of what it looks like from that chair versus the end user, in this case an attendee to a meeting. So what I started doing was tailoring a lot of my information on trying to get meeting professionals to sit in their attendee's chair and say, how does this room feel? How does this speaker interact with them? What's the lighting? What's the sound system? Anything that could affect their perception of the meeting, starting really built around the whole concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, with basic needs being met first. If someone's too cold, they never are going to make it to self-actualization, because all they're thinking about is they're too cold, or I can't hear the speaker, or I can't see this. So that's how it all began. So to me, strategic planning is thinking about the attendee and what it feels like to attend that meeting. One of the interesting things that people in all industries, but meeting planning is also being affected, is the whole generational issue, because we have people crossing at least 3 to 4 generations. And how do you create a meeting in this day and age that can cross all boundaries? And of course, there is a lot of resistance to change, as usual. But if what we are looking at is, if you really work on adult learning principles of interaction and them wanting to know how it relates to their job tomorrow and how can they apply it, and sharing war stories, that's actually really appropriate for the Gen Ys who want things. They don't want to know history. They want to know what's going now. What am I going to do today? How's it going to work? And by using everything from social media and everything else to create this very interactive environment, it actually works really, really well with adult learners of any generation. So a lot of what I've been working with meeting planners to see is that it's not a bad thing this generation has come on. In fact, if anything, it may just force us to do things we should have been doing for years. What I realized is a lot of what I worked with people on, either one-on-one or groups, or when I was speaking as a whole, was issues we go through in grown-up life. Whether it be changing careers, finding a career, getting married, getting divorced, raising children, all the things we get handed as adults. And so I knew I was speaking about that kind of life, but I really didn't understand where I placed in it all. And it was actually my mastermind group who said to me one day, you know, you're like everyone's favorite guidance counselor, the one you spoke to in high school that you could go talk to about anything and they'd make you feel better about yourself, and they'd figure out with you what the next steps you had to take. And so they're actually the ones who gave me the title of guidance counselor for grown-ups. And I'm fortunate that, you know, my clients and most people who meet me, the minute they see that, they have a pretty good idea of what I do and how I may or may not be able to help them. And for me, there is a lot of similarities, of course, with a coach. But if you knew how unathletic I was, coach should never be in the same sentence as my name. And I just wasn't really comfortable with it. This, I think, fits my personality far better. And as I said, people know right away what I probably do. And one of the concepts I've just been developing in the past few months, trying to figure out really how this all ties in, is the concept of having grown-ups in the room. What happens when we have the grown-ups in the room? In other words, not living your life just as an adult. We're adult just because we get older and all those things get handed to us. Job changes, personal life changes, elderly parents, whatever. But how do you live it as a grown-up? What does that mean? And I don't mean a stodgy, formal, that's so not me, but how do you handle things? How could we handle in business a department meeting if all the grown-ups showed up to the room? Or a board meeting, or interacting with our clients, and even in our personal lives. What happens in your personal relationships if you show up as a grown-up and deal with things as opposed to an adult? So it's a work in progress. It will always be evolving as my life evolves and I go through more things as an adult and hopefully as a grown-up. I think that's what causes a lot of dissension in work. I think that's why a lot of teams, whether it be a department, a board, any group, do not function, because you have some or maybe all the members showing up as adults, and they're not looking at the bigger picture. It's very much about them. Not that I want someone to sacrifice themselves for the good of the team, but just how you handle situation, or even in personal lives. One of the examples I've lived through and experienced and seen firsthand myself is what happens when someone divorces in a family. And is it just the couple that gets divorced, or is it the whole family that gets divorced? And what I have discovered, and by talking to other people who have had divorces that people have managed to retain good feelings about and everything, is that when the grown-ups show up to the room, they remember that that's all that happened. That marriage dissolved, and that it doesn't mean you cut out nieces and nephews and brothers-in-law and mothers-in-law and everything like that. You can still love those people, and you can still interact on some kind of level, and sometimes it takes time. But when the grown-ups show up to the room and realize they don't know what went on in that marriage or how people handled it, nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors, that those relationships can be retained. And I think we're all the richer for it, because I don't think anyone wants to lose everything or everybody. When someone shows up to work and they are routinely, we all do it on some point, but routinely carry all the negative things that are going on in their life, especially outside of work or inside of work, and don't process it and just keep carrying it with them, relive it. For example, I was in a discussion one day with someone where someone was recounting something negative that had happened, and they kept going through the story over and over again. And someone turned to them and said, "Do you feel any better telling me this story?" And the person stopped and went, "No, actually I don't." And I think that's the adult part. We're hurt, we're angry, we're frustrated, whatever. We tell the story to anyone who will listen, but it doesn't help us really move past it. Whereas if we tell the story, get it out of our system, and then move on, to me, that's the grown-up way of handling it. Like, it may not be fair. It may not be fair, but it doesn't mean we don't need to deal with it in a constructive, positive way. So I think someone, a member of a department or a team carrying that kind of thing into work and not working through it. I don't want to say let it go. I don't want to say get over it. Those aren't particularly expressions I like, but you have to work through it and get to the other side. And I think that can be very poisonous to a whole team if someone's like that, a very toxic person, what someone who I sat on a board with called being the skunk at the picnic. I think also people really believe that they're so ordinary. It's not ordinary people that do things. And I think that's part of where the concept of my company came from, is that really those are the ones who make the biggest difference. And if you talk to a lot of people who have really made huge differences in the world, even if it's in their neighborhood or the world as a whole, they don't really think they're anything exceptional. They don't think they're extraordinary. They think they're ordinary people who just saw something that needed to be done and went out and did it. And that's really the concept of ordinary success, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, as opposed to thinking, I need to be someone extraordinary to do something extraordinary. Part of the name also came from the concept, I always loved Jimmy Stewart in the movies. And he always played that everyman who went out and did things, whether it be in It's a Wonderful Life or Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It was that concept of the every man or every person going out and making a difference and frequently bucking the odds. But I do believe that once someone gets passionate and really behind something that they believe in, that they automatically will begin to have a following. So it is ordinary people doing extraordinary things.